Dating app Grindr's popularity has grown globally, averaging 14.5 million monthly active users. Shares of the company are up more than 30% year to date, outperforming many of its peers. George Arison, Grindr CEO, joins us here in San Francisco. I've been thinking a lot about the profile of the user base. What's so interesting about it is why they're going to engage with the technology you've invested in. The user base is affluent. It is highly educated. How does that play in real time on the platform?
Well, that probably implies that it's easier for them to pay for products, right? Even though we actually have a much lower rate of payer penetration than our peers. And that's largely because we've not monetized the product, and we're going to keep it kind of slow because we don't want to take things away. We're going to build new products for people and then ask them to pay for those additional features, not take things away from the product now. But I think the user base is also different, not just because of those reasons, but also because they need a community. They need to be able to find each other in different ways, and that's what Grindr is really good at, and we're good at that everywhere, not just in the U.S., in 190 countries around the world. And I think that's why people keep coming back. And our user base is very broadly distributed. We did some work on this last year, looking at where are they, and they're basically everywhere. You'd think they're only in these coastal cities, and it's actually not true. We have people in very dense communities, obviously, but also in very rural communities where population is very low, and so people come back because that's the only place for them to meet each other.
There's a question about what they'd pay for, right? One reason the stock's outperformed so far this year, particularly against peers who have a broader user base, is that a lot of people give you credit for the investment in AI and what it might do for future growth. How's that playing out?
So we've launched one product already that users are seeing now. It's called A-List. It goes through all your messages, creates a summary of each of the messages you've had with people, and then recommends a short list of people that you talk to that are the best ones for you to go back and reconnect with. And that's been really awesome. I mean, I've had users email me saying things like, wow, this is completely amazing, although a little bit dystopian as well, which is kind of how it feels. I mean, that's what AI does to you. That was the first time I think a consumer app did anything like that. I mean, Gmail just started doing message summaries like last week, and we've been doing this since about February, so I was really psyched how early we were able to get it out. That was a really awesome thing. And the next one's going to be around insights, where we'll be able to tell you things about the other person that we have learned about them, obviously always with user consent. We would never do this without people consenting to actively opt into our AI features. But these things, I think, will really make it easier for people to actually connect better. And to have the right types of relationships based on those connections. So I'm really psyched about what AI can do. And AI wins in companies that have a lot of data and have great distribution. And Grindr has that. And so I think being ahead of the curve on that is really important for us.
Particularly for the LGBTQ plus community, George, privacy is front and center. How have you managed to marry and give that sort of comfort to the user base, that when they're using these very ahead of their time products, as you say, dystopian, they know that their data remains safe within them?
Yeah, so at Grindr, privacy is by far the paramount thing because we have users in countries where it's illegal to be gay, or in areas where, while it might be legal, you still can't really be yourself. And so protecting them is really, really crucial. We don't ask for a lot of information from users when they join the app. We don't require a photo. We don't try to be as minimal as we can in that regard, again, because privacy is so important to users. And from there, the other really critical thing for us is to be able to keep all the data on Grindr. So we work with Amazon's Bedrock service, which is a virtual private space that allows us to actually keep everything on our end. Our data does not kind of stay with anybody else, and our data does not train anybody else's models. And that's been really helpful, obviously. And the other thing we're now starting to do is actually take open source models put them into our system and be able to train them to make them be a little more gay. And that's also quite interesting because that's kind of pushing us closer to the frontier of what's happening in AI, but no one else is doing anything like that, and we think we can provide some really useful insights for our users through that.
That's fascinating. What about the use case for your own talent, George? The reason in which you've also seen share price increases because your profitability's gone up. You did that by making some tough decisions on how many people you needed to work at the business. How are you looking at using generative AI from productivity internally?
Yeah, so Grindr is really special. We have a little bit over 150 people, and we're on track to do over 420 million in revenue this year, based on our guidance in May. It's pretty unusual, I think, for a company to have that few number of people for the kind of revenue we generate. That was not really intentional, but we felt that there was an opportunity to be more productive, and as we pushed for that productivity, we were able to achieve these types of results. And I think we want to keep them, right? Like, we don't want to have a bloated team. We want to have a lean team that can be very hardcore and work in a very effective way and produce really good results. Although, obviously, we do need to grow the team because we are growing as a business pretty strongly. We've been using Gen AI a lot internally. Every time something new comes out, we usually enable our engineering team to be able to use it and see how they want to use it. One of the challenges with some of the products that help you code is that they're really designed for web coding, not for mobile. And so that's one thing that is missing for us, because obviously our product is primarily on mobile devices. So that's one thing we're looking towards, kind of hopefully comes soon. But otherwise, adoption has been really strong. And even for me, like, I've seen some incredible improvements in my work productivity with AI. I take all the big decks that are shared with me, and I feed them into ChatGPT, and train my own install of ChatGPT on what I need and how I work. And that's made me a way better CEO, able to provide way more clarity to the team around what needs to happen, because I can produce materials for them a lot faster than I otherwise would be able to.
George, almost universally, every CEO that I speak to each week makes this observation that your R&D commitment expenses right now in the flywheel don't show up in the top line that same fiscal year. And so you gave the example about message summarization that is now more common in Google Suite or Gmail, for example. But you must have a kind of line of sight to some of the work you're doing now that you think will show up next year. What is that work and how does it look?
Yeah, and that's 100% right. And generally speaking, I think Jeff Bezos once said, like, he had a good quarter and someone told him, hey, great quarter. He's like, yeah, I did work on that quarter 4 quarters ago. I'm now working on the 4 quarters out. That's very much how I tend to think about things as well. Most of what's going to happen in 2025 for Grindr is already baked. And we've kind of tested most of those things, although there are a couple of things that might have an impact on the business this year. Most of what we're working on is for next year. So things like A-List, things like Discover, enabling insights for our users, all of these things people are going to start experiencing this year, but we're going to not monetize those until next year. The same way that when we launched Right Now, it went live last year to certain sets of users to test it out, but we didn't start monetizing it until a little bit this year and really a lot more heavily next year. And it's a really important point. Along with the fact that for Grindr, at least, having a really great free user product is also really critical. And so we need to be investing not just in features that make us money, but also in just making the app a lot better for users all the time, because the free users are just as critical as paying users.
You get the app to be better, you perhaps charge with some new products. You've been doing things in telehealth, things in ultimately being more creative and how you create your own offering on Grindr, in particular, a more personal AI sidekick, George. I want to go broader for a moment. In this environment, current environment that we find ourselves in the United States, how are people engaging with your stock? Are you finding a broader adoption from people who want to come in and buy your stock? Are you finding more broad partnerships when it comes to banking and the like?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually been pretty amazing to watch Grindr kind of go from where it was 2.5 years ago when we went public to where we are now. We, couldn't get certain banks to work with us. We couldn't get certain other partners to work with us. And now, when we go to conferences, we have more investors showing up than we can fit in our schedule. And oftentimes, you have 3-4 people coming into one 30-minute meeting because that's the only way to make it all work. And so the engagement has been really fantastic. The stock is trading really well. And that's, I think, fundamentally the promise of, capitalism, where you perform really well and people respond. My general view is that the reason the gay rights movement was so successful over the last 50 years is not only because there was a lot of activism and kind of push for rights, but also because people saw in everyday life very successful gay people achieve incredible things in their day-to-day work, in their own professional careers, versus just kind of activism, right? Whether that was in athletics or in politics or in business. And Grindr now has an opportunity to do the same thing at a corporate level. We're the first time there's a global gay brand. We're the first company kind of serving our community that is doing as well in the public markets as we are. We are, I think, the second public company ever in our space. And the more successful we become, the more impact we can have on the world, right? Considering where we were when we went public to where we are now and where we want to go, because obviously we're by no means done with the things we want to achieve. I think that story can be really powerful in terms of pushing people to understand what is possible here, and the fact that all gay people want is actually equality and to be treated fairly and to have the equal opportunity everybody else in this country enjoys.